Thank you, Senator Vance. Ranking Member Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to each of the witnesses today. Good to see you. I want to start with Mr. Coleman and Mr. Hill. Thank you for being here. It was great to see Starship finally succeed in conducting its second test flight just a few weeks ago. This was, of course, after months of delay stemming from bureaucratic red tape from AST, Fish and Wildlife, and other agencies injecting themselves into the process. An environmental review had been approved for the first launch of Starship, but simply because SpaceX must continue new test launches, they were required to go through a whole new environmental review process. To your knowledge, does China apply its own version of environmental policy review equivalent to a National Environmental Policy Act, under which Chinese citizens, or perhaps a bat conservation group, can sue the CCP and halt missile or space vehicle development? And what about Russia? Does Russia do that?
Thank you for your question, Senator Cruz. The first SpaceX launch that you mentioned, Orbital Flight Test 1, did result in a mishap whereby the pad was destroyed. For the second flight, they had to repair the pad, and as such, due to that change, it required a new look at the environmental piece to ensure compliance with NEPA and to ensure compliance with the Environmental Species Act, which required a consultation with the Fish and Wildlife Service. And so we conducted that consultation with the Fish and Wildlife Service in accordance with U.S. law. To your second question about China and their programs, I'm not as familiar with what China does there, but I can tell you with a surety that we follow U.S. law and procedure in our environmental review process associated with the second launch of Starship.
Thank you, Ranking Member Cruz. I'm not familiar with the Chinese legal structure, but I know enough to say I wouldn't find it as a good model for us.
Well, look, I've been to that pad where the launch occurred, and I'll tell you the answer is no. In China, you cannot do that. You don't have those suits. In Russia, the answer is no. Let me ask you this. When China or Russia undertakes a national space mission, do either of them wait for months to go through litigation with their domestic versions of Earth Justice or the Center for Biological Diversity?
I'm not certain or aware of what Russia and China does in those scenarios, Senator.
To my knowledge, they do not do those things, sir. I think that's part of the value of our system, though, is the openness that we have.
So with all due respect, it's not the value of our system to have asinine delays that accomplish nothing and that put us at a disadvantage compared to our competitors, and we are in a race for space. Now understand, I'm not advocating for a wholesale repeal of our environmental laws or NEPA. I'm just arguing for them not to be applied in a dumbass way that slows down commercial space. And under the current status quo, with agencies giving the opportunity for third-party lawsuits to derail commercial space development, that is slowing down our effectiveness. Do you think that makes sense? Is the current system broken? Or should the United States treat commercial space sector as advancing our national interests?
Thanks for the question, Senator. I certainly believe that the U.S. commercial space sector does, in fact, advance our national interests in many ways. We understand the benefits that commercial space plays to our national security, as well as our civil space exploration interests. And so we work very closely with our partners, NASA and the Defense Department, to ensure that we have timely, accurate, precise licensing reviews for these very critical programs, and we'll continue to do that moving forward.
Senator, we are enabling commercial launch in this country and commercial space in this country from our perspective in the Defense Department because it benefits us in the Defense Department. We leverage that, as I noted in my opening statement. And I think commercial firms are finding this to be the attractive place to invest, even though we do have this regulatory processes of ours. And so I think we should continue to ensure this remains the environment where companies want to put their money to work.
Well, I think you're right that we need to work to ensure that, and that means that there should be a mandate for streamlining the process so it actually is sensible rather than being counterproductive. Deputy Administrator Melroy, let me turn to you. Thank you for your many years of service, both to the Air Force and now NASA. In our last hearing, former NASA Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations, Bill Gerstemeyer, noted how the slow licensing process is causing scheduling delays for Starship and, consequently, the Artemis lunar landing mission. HLSHE said, these delays, quote, simply would not be acceptable if he were at NASA. Do you think the regulatory delays that impede programs of national interest like Artemis are acceptable? And put another way, does the current regulatory framework for commercial space move fast enough or provide enough flexibility to allow a company to iterate a vehicle for a mission of national interest?
Thank you, Senator, and may I just say thank you for your support of all of our Texas activities that we do and your support of NASA. It's been incredible through the years, and we appreciate it. Of course, we are vitally interested in the success of our commercial partners, as I brought up. In preparation, I actually contacted the program manager and asked, do you think our partners are slowing us down? And was told no. I think the complexity that we're seeing is there's a lot of new stuff happening, and there are some new players who are trying to work within their statutory deadlines, but are very unfamiliar with this kind of activity. So there has been a learning period. I don't refer to the FAA, who understands their business very well, but some of their environmental partners who are learning along the way. I can assure you that NASA works very closely with those regulatory partners, and that they have signaled that they are aware of the critical nature of the Artemis program and how important its success is to the nation.
Thank you.